We have a packed episode for you this week with positive comments coming from the new crypto czar. We have a new partnership for Hedera that we want to cover. There's more attention coming from the media onto the HBAR, and we have some updates on plenty of use cases for you. Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, here once again to bring you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. But as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. So to start off today, we're going to cover some new developments that have come out of the crypto czar and the new administration. Now, we covered some of this with the press conference that came from several of the lawmakers in our space and David Sachs just a few days ago, but what we're seeing now is even more positive. There was a segment done by CNBC where David Sachs, the crypto and AI czar, came on, and his comments were even more positive than what we saw this past Tuesday. The first clip that we're going to show you is discussing how quickly we're going to see crypto legislation go through the process and get signed into law. So let's take a look.
I was on the Hill today meeting with the leaders of our House and Senate committees for banking and for finance, and they are very committed to moving legislation through the House and the Senate this year in order to provide that clear regulatory framework that the digital assets ecosystem needs to sustain innovation in the United States. And so those chairmen, I think, are very committed. President Trump is committed, and I think we can do something here. But as you know, moving legislation through Congress takes time. But I think this is something we could do in the next 6 months.
Now, legislation should have an outweighed positive effect on Hedera. Reason being, many of the enterprises that are building on Hedera are likely waiting on that regulatory clarity to go all in without their risk departments getting a little bit too jumpy. This legislation is also going to set the rules and the guidelines allowing builders, startups, and these enterprises alike to turn up their application and product development without worrying about running afoul of regulators, which of course has been the issue up until this point. And when they know the rules of the road, that's when innovation can really take off. So I'm really excited about how this legislation is going to impact the Hedera space. Next up, we have some more comments from Mr. Sachs on the potential for the government to acquire these digital assets directly.
I guess it's possible that the Sovereign Wealth Fund could decide that they want to make Bitcoin or digital assets part of its portfolio. You're going to have to ask the incoming Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick about that. The item that President Trump asked our working group on digital assets to study is whether it's feasible to create either a Bitcoin reserve or some sort of digital asset stockpile. And so we're going to be looking at that question. We haven't committed yet to doing it, but it's one of the first things we're going to be looking at.
So in the digital assets press conference that we highlighted a few days ago, David Sachs only talked about Bitcoin as being part of that strategic reserve. Here he specifically broadens that out to include other digital assets. I think that was calculated. I think during that press conference, it was actually a mistake when he only talked about Bitcoin in that strategic reserve. And here he was clarifying that they're actually looking at all digital assets for that strategic reserve. In addition, another thing that popped out to me here is we actually have two shots to be acquired by the U.S. government. One is for that strategic reserve, and the other one is for a sovereign wealth fund. And David made it very clear that those are two separate animals. So it's really heartening to see that HBAR could actually have two shots to get purchased by the government. Also, after comments like we've seen from Eric Trump, U.S.-founded tokens could have the best shot to be included in things like the Sovereign Wealth Fund and the Strategic Reserve. All kinds of outlets are following this U.S. token narrative really closely, and that's not just in the crypto space, but the broader financial media as well. But one that is in the crypto space that has been really cold to the HBAR and Hedera in the past, but has been starting to warm up lately is the Coin Bureau. And here's a quick clip with them discussing the U.S. cred for Hedera and the HBAR.
Another one is Hedera Hgraph, and it's HBAR coin. This is also US based. Now, the Hedera has a sort of governing council, doesn't it, with some major corporations on it, including the likes of Google, IBM, and Boeing. Well, let's not talk about Boeing. But all three of those US corporations as well. So Hedera's US credentials are pretty strong.
So in addition to the US token narrative, there's also the Dino coin narrative that we're seeing out there. And these are utility tokens that have been around for a little bit longer. We're talking about XRP, Hedera, Algorand, tokens like that. And they've been catching a real bid lately. And we saw an article come out from The Street that had some interesting insights. The head of strategy at Coinbase gave his opinion, but I really liked what I heard from David Gochkin, founder of Gochkin Media, who started with the meme coin hype, saying, people are just playing around with these memes that are coming off of Pump Fund, these so-called AI memes that are being put out there. They're getting liquidated. I think that money is going to finally go into XRP, into Cardano, into HBAR. Hedera is really great. It's a great protocol, and I think anybody that goes in, especially right now, they'll reap the benefits of it 6 to 8 months down the line. So we're seeing more of these media outlets and these influencers get more engaged with what's happening on Hedera and the HBAR. And as they do, they're going to go down the same path that we all have. They're going to realize how much innovation is taking place in the Hedera network. They're going to realize how much building is taking place on top of the network. And that's going to make them that much more passionate about Hedera and the HBAR. All right, so now we're going to move on to one of the Hedera governing council members, the latest governing council member, and that is the Nairobi Securities Exchange. We had a clip come out from Hedera with him talking about why they joined the Hedera Governing Council and some of the plans they have. So let's listen to what he has to say.
Hi, my name is Frank Mweti. I'm the CEO of the Nairobi Securities Exchange based in Nairobi in Kenya. The Nairobi Securities Exchange is the leading exchange in Eastern and Central Africa and one of the top 5 exchanges in Africa. We offer quite a variety of products on our exchange, including equities, fixed income, real estate investment trusts, ETFs, derivatives, and the like. More importantly, we service a broad range of sectors on our exchange that cuts across the likes of manufacturing, banking, insurance, telecoms, among others. We joined the Hedera Governing Council for a number of reasons. 3 of them are the 3 most compelling ones. The first one is we want to learn from other leading organizations that are part of the Hedera Governing Council, and translate those learnings to practical use cases for us in our part of the world, with a view, of course, to developing our own markets and making sure that those markets are our development is also aligned with what's happening around the world from our global standards. The second thing that is compelling for us is the use cases that we see already being implemented by the Hedera community. And so we resonate with those use cases and would want to learn more about those and translate them, of course, to actual implementations on our side. The third one, of course, is the opportunity to network with like-minded individuals that see the potential for blockchain and distributed ledger technology as a way to solve a lot of the challenges that we have back home. And so for that reason, we as NSC actually see this as a huge opportunity to learn, to develop, and of course also share our own learnings that might be useful to other members of the council and the larger Hedera community. Tokenization for us, we see it as actually a very revolutionary approach to solving a lot of the challenges that we have back home. We are finding that there is opportunity to use tokenization to democratize access to investment opportunities and also to democratize access to capital to build businesses. And if you look at how traditionally exchanges like ours have been run, it's very technology dependent, but it's also been very much a legacy type way of doing things. We see opportunities to do things quicker, more secure, in a more accessible way by embracing DLT and blockchain and related technologies. And tokenization as one of the key ways to support our investor community to access opportunities more readily, more easily. For companies that are looking to raise capital, to use tokenization as an approach to tap capital both within our borders as well as outside Kenya in a regulated and compliant way. And then at the end of it, we also see this as tokenization as a way to really scale things very quickly. And we want to do that, of course, in the context of compliance, regulation, and of course in a way that is secure. Maybe the other thing to mention about tokenization from an approach perspective is it is already, from what we can see, it is an already proven method. We are not having to experiment too much, but obviously we will need to tailor that to our own circumstances. So for that reason, it's very innovative, it's very accessible, it's scalable. If we by leveraging Hedera, it would be even more successful in our view. It is one of the areas where we really want to actually focus on. I know there's many other use cases that are possible, but for us as NSC, the entry point and the focus point is going to be tokenization.
So after listening to Frank speak, I realized why Rob is looking forward to working with him. He seems really passionate and genuine about wanting to build on Hedera. And speaking of Rob, we're going to move over to Shark Bites. Rob, another eventful week. We've got a lot going on.
Yeah, well, it's never a quiet moment, is it? In the Web3 space or the macro events and Hedera as well, of course. So, yeah, got to keep your eye on the ball.
Well, we just got out this morning that summary that you did of the changes, the overhaul that's kind of been done at the Governing Council. I think that was really well received, but we also got some good questions here that might touch on some of that from the community. We're going to start with one from HBAR, who has one that I was curious about as well. And he says, Rob, can you explain to me AUDD in a few words, like I'm 5, and give us some alpha on the launch? Now, Rob, this is surrounding an announcement that there's going to be an Australian stablecoin that's going to come out in Q3 of this year. And of course, you're probably the best person to give us some insights into exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, I can neither confirm nor deny that I've been working in the background towards getting an Australian dollar-backed stablecoin available on Hedera. But it's actually wonderful news. I mean, it's amazing news for me personally as a payments guy. It kind of enables all sorts of really cool use cases, which I can go into in a little while. So AUDD has been around for a couple of years. It's a business actually confusingly called AUDC, Pty Limited here in Australia. And it's a spin out of a large, decades old business called Novati, a payments processing business that has very successfully been applying cross-border payments and providing payment services to the industry and particular sectors for many years. They recognized they saw the future in the tea leaves a couple of years ago and created this AUDC business, which is very active. I mean, it's very active in the Australian blockchain and crypto space, always sponsoring events, always kind of getting out there. A couple of amazing co-founders to it, Effie Dimitropoulos, hope I haven't butchered that name, and an amazing lady called Michaela, or MJ, who's been around the Bitcoin space since year dot. So I mean, they're really into the industry. They actually really understand what it means to create stablecoins and recognize the gap in the market for Australian dollar-backed stablecoins pretty much before anyone else did. So AUDD is the name of the stablecoin, and they started on the Stellar blockchain, and now they've issued on Ethereum, I believe, coming, if not already, on Solana. And so when we talked to them about whether they'd consider Hedera, the normal conversation was had. Where's the demand? What's it for? Why should we prioritize? And so a bit of to and fro, maybe 18 months ago or so. And we got the foundation involved, and to support and help, and a few of the great Hedera projects here in Australia were able to help them as well. And so now we're at a position post delivery, post audit, and everything that they're ready to launch. So why is that important? Well, most people see stablecoins as almost the store of value that they hold on the crypto exchange. They don't have to bring all their fiat currency back into the bank account and hold it in a stable value. And that's one use case for stablecoins. And obviously, it's one of the biggest use cases, and always has been. Increasingly, though, we're seeing cross-border and remittances being a very good use case for things like USDC and the ability to, sort of move digital money around the planet very quickly. As long as the off ramps are there, then it's easy to move around. But that's a lot easier to do with a US dollar denominated stablecoin like USDC, and not so much for other currencies. And there's a great organization called Stablecoin Standard that looks at all the non-US dollar backed stablecoins and is supporting them. There's very legitimate reasons. Obviously, there are local currencies, there are local solutions, and potentially platforms that use that local currency. And the benefits of a stablecoin are efficiency and cost optimization and speed. So all the things that we kind of look to highly scalable distributed ledger technology to solve for in that crossover with kind of real money, if I can put it that way. So where there are big use cases for US dollar stablecoins globally, there are similar use cases regionally or in country for stablecoins that are backed by the local currency. And we've just seen the FSCO announcement of the Philippines use case, a Philippine-backed stablecoin. The services use cases that are really important for that country and that region, and in particular remittances and cross-border. So here in Australia, we're seeing some great use cases. I mean, I'm talking to projects building on Hedera all the time that are looking for easier ways to get money in and out of their platform. Now, that platform might be a closed loop system. It might be a Web 2.5. It might be, fully Web3 open, public ledger platform or a DeFi protocol or something like that can use Australian dollars. But most Australian citizens obviously have bank accounts and hold money in Australian dollars and not in a foreign currency. So their on ramp is more. It will be more familiar for them to create or use a stablecoin in AUD. So some of the use cases, some of the projects, some of the businesses that are looking to use an Australian-backed stablecoin, and the AUDD aren't the only one. They're the first issued on Hedera, but we do have stablecoins in our economy. There is we still have this challenge of regulatory clarity and how they're treated. And we have guidance notes from our version of the SEC, ASIC, about how they are looking on it based on current legislation. There is legislation expected next year, which will make this a lot clearer, and the regulatory and licensing treatment of stablecoins will be perfectly crystal clear then, hopefully. Which means that those businesses that are positioning themselves not only for the issuing of stablecoins like AUDD, but also the using of stablecoins, will know how they need to operate, what kind of licensing they need, if any, etc. So some great use cases. Obviously, I love payments, but as I've said many times, if you have a stablecoin issued on Hedera, you inherit all of the beneficial properties of the network. Similarly, if you have a stablecoin issued on a different network that doesn't have the scalability or security or sustainability and all those things, then that stablecoin doesn't inherit any of those properties. So one purple coin doesn't look the same as another purple coin if they're on different networks. A stablecoin on Hedera inherently enables you to do micropayments. It inherently enables you to utilize the EVM or the smart contract layer that is, super quick and low costs and cheap, etc. So the use cases that you can build utilizing a Hedera issued stablecoin are far more wide ranging, far more nuanced or sophisticated than on other chains. So, my pitch has always been issue a stablecoin on Hedera, get all of the benefits of that. And by the way, they use the Stablecoin Studio, so it's another great implementation for that kind of open source studio project. And I insisted on that because there are plenty of other benefits you get with having that. A stablecoin really only needs to prove reserves in order to be issued, and you can do that using the HTS. But if you do use the Stablecoin Studio, it's kind of bank grade, and it's got hooks into all of the transaction monitoring and oracles and custodial wallets that you need really to implement it within bank grade solutions. So now not only do we have the Stablecoin Studio, we have an implementation, a reference implementation in AUDD, which can be utilized for everything from micropayments through to even transactional IoT. We talk about, so there's a way of fractionalizing or using micropayments with IoT devices. We can align it to reward points. Another very exciting project that I'm working with doing that. We can pay for carbon credits or tokenized carbon credits with AUDD. So there are, Guardian-based projects that now have a way of settling, so purchasing things with a stablecoin allows for an atomic swap between digital assets. So any use case that requires, builds a product or tokenizes a thing and then wants someone else to pay for it, settle, tender and settle, it becomes super easy. And on Hedera, you can do atomic swaps in the same transaction. So, token for token. So if one token's a dollar-backed or an Australian dollar-backed stablecoin, and the other one is a tokenized, carbon credit, easy and quick and cheap. So this is why I think stablecoins are the key enabler for a wide variety of use cases, and it really has been the missing piece of the puzzle. So now we've got this ability to do all of those things and more, and super excited.
All right, sounds good. So, Rob, the next thing we're going to get into, this is another one of those perennial questions that we get, hit with on a regular basis, and it's around use cases. HBAR 7 says, what time frame are we looking at for another high TPS use case to go live on mainnet? And of course, we saw Atmio come online and push the network. It didn't break a sweat, but it was exciting for the community to see how many transactions were being put on the network. Now, Elevator King has one along the same vein, but on a specific use case saying, when will we see an NVIDIA hardware demonstration of the HBAR stuff from Equity Lab or something similar? Now, for that second part of the question, I am in contact with Equity Lab through actually Zenobia, who's helping them out with some of the communication. So I am going to try to get their team on to talk about that in a little bit more detail, and we should probably wait until then. But Rob, I'm not sure if you have any insights on that, but in general, what are you seeing as far as the potential for new use cases to hit the network or existing use cases to start to ramp up?
Yeah. Well, on the second part, I can't wait. I haven't spoken to Jonathan over Equity Labs for quite some time. So yeah, I can't wait for that either. Yeah, I mean, we do talk a lot, or we have spoken in the past about these big use cases. A big high throughput use cases are few and far between. And whether we like it or not, enterprise adoption of DLT is still in its early stages. So, the great thing about the Atma experience was it's provided us with all the data points, and it's proven the scalability of the network. So when I talk to other enterprises, either through UseCom, the committee I chair, or and I regularly talk to many other enterprises who are interested, either candidates for joining the governing council, or just because I'm really boring and talk about Hedera a lot. They all start small, right? So it's just part of risk management and control before you go all in. That said, there are some big high throughput use cases that I know are being proven out right now. So I'm actually of the view that it won't be another big step change for one use case. I think what we'll get is a range of use cases ramping up over time. I think I talked about this before. I think the curve is going to ramp up pretty quickly, because most of these projects, many big throughput enterprise projects with lots of consumers. Remember, startups don't start at that level. Most of them don't. So they need to grow community. They need to grow usage. They need to grow their features from their MVP through to over time. So all startups, aren't going to hit that 1,000 transactions a second threshold, unless they are. I guess they have peaks and troughs. Something like Karate Combat could potentially, have a massive peak, but over a short period of time, but not sustained day after day after day. And I think so. So I think we'll get a lot more projects like that are cyclical. So those cycles then merge, right? So that gives you a more consistent TPS. And then the big enterprise use cases, there are many that are at a similar point in time. So look at Mondelez. So Mondelez with SKUX. Potentially, there are many, many thousands of transactions a second for that. But they're just looking at one use case to start with, to test the water, and then another one, then another use case, then another use case. And so you only need a handful of enterprises doing similar things, which is actually what they're doing. Proof of concept, limited feature with limited pilot, friends and family type release, and then another use case on top once that's proven, then another use case on top once that's proven. And then you start getting network effects as well. So you get the cross. There will be a point in time where a wallet is used for over multiple use cases, as we're seeing now within our community, but at a smaller scale, I guess. And so there's more transactions that are born from the fact that there's network effect too. And then it all takes off, right? I mean, there will be slowly, then everything at once, and that point will happen, but it won't be for one use case. It'll be because of the maturity of all of the projects working together, or working, in parallel even, are hitting their maturity point at a similar time. And I don't think that's too far away, to be honest. We're seeing lots of interesting, things coming out. C+Q, equity with NVIDIA, all of the AI agent work that is being done in the Hedera space now. Sustainability, as soon as that guardian ecosystem kind of kicks in, and I spoke to Wes yesterday about this, there's so much demand coming now that all of these ecosystems then kick in, and it's all driven, all the TPS is driven by that. But one final word on that, TPS is only one metric, right? And we've kind of been, maybe not so much now, but when it was running hot and hard, we kind of addicted to the number, and we've got to wean ourselves off that addiction, because there are many other metrics that we need to really focus on. And one of the things that UseCon, my committee, is going to do over the next few months is to really review all of the new meaningful metrics, both for our ecosystem and for others. And take it from there. But yeah, I agree. TPS is really still out there for us.
Yeah, all these teams are out there grinding, whether it's Neuron, whether it's Earthlings, Karate Combat up layer 2, all these things have tremendous potential, and they're all on those curves of additional adoption and additional usage. So it's exciting to watch. All right, so Rob, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball. We have HederaCon coming up. We still have a couple weeks to prepare for this.
Yep.
There's a lot of huge work that's going into this. Shout out to Lena. I know she's really working hard on it. But I want to throw it to you and ask, how can we go about trying to make sure that we get the most out of this? We've heard about these in-person meetings we have with the governing council, and how, as much happens at those meetings as does all of the other meetings combined. So we're going to do the same thing, but with the community and the governing council and everybody else in the Hedera ecosystem. How can we get the most out of this?
Oh, that is a curveball.
I know.
Well, it's only one day as well, of course, and it's a jam-packed schedule. I think we should probably see who's around, certainly the day before, and for the after party that night. Just maximize the time that we're together, right? I mean, we'll come away unsatisfied, I'm sure, because not everyone gets to talk as much as they want to with everyone, but. We'll need to give that some thought over the next week or so. I'm really excited about HederaCon, and I'm there all week. So if anyone wants to, wants 5 minutes or 10 minutes of my time, then please reach out, because I'm very open to, probably more open than I should be in one-on-one. But I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Oh, it's a great opportunity, and I think that's the point. We need to kind of plan now, get together, talk to people, plan out your time, schedule everything so you can try to fit everything in to maximize your time there. A lot of us are just going to be there for a couple days, Monday to Wednesday, or even leaving on Tuesday night. But a lot of people are also going to be there attending ETH Denver and going to Karate Combat on Friday night. So we might have a few days in there. So just get that planning started now. But Rob, that's all I have for you this week. We'll make sure to get plenty of good questions for you for next week. We kind of went to the last minute on getting questions this morning, but we still got some really good ones. That's all I have for you. We'll see you next week.
See you next week, and let's do a live Shark Bites at HederaCon. That would be great, wouldn't it?
So if you asked a question of Rob and you didn't see it answered there, it's all right. We probably did answer it, and it'll be posted on Sunday. We have the full Shark Bites, which is about twice as long as the segment that you just saw. All right, so now I want to move over to something that I saw posted by Hedera. I like when we see Hedera getting out there and being a little bit cheeky and stirring the pot. They said in a post, tracking U.S. government spending with blockchain is probably simpler when the blockchain you use has fees pegged to the U.S. dollar. Why overcomplicate things? Hedera provides exactly that. So we've already seen some tangential connections between Elon Musk and Hedera, with SpaceX sending some satellites into space that are going to be used for transactional Internet of Things, facilitated by Hedera. We've also had Elon Musk, of course, post that HBAR symbol that was back in the beginning of 2021. And I do think that there was some substance to that. And speaking of those satellites that are being put up by WiseSat and are going to be used by CLSQ for those transactional Internet of Things, we saw the Seal coin being featured in Nasdaq in New York City. But I've been contacted by the Seal Coin team, and they want to talk about the token more specifically, so I'm going to have them on before too long. And of course, it's great to see these tokens that are going to be built on Hedera being featured right there in Times Square. And going back to more media outlets covering HBAR, I actually saw on Nasdaq where they were covering the HBAR.
We had these two big clumps of performance, and in between we had to be super patient. It was really a Bitcoin year a lot, although after the election, the idea of smart contract platforms and other growth-oriented digital assets gained favor. They have much more to benefit from a new regulatory pavement. So Ethereum sprang back to life, a lot of other layer ones, a lot of DeFi protocols. So the CoinDesk 20 index ended up 88% on the year. The top performers of current constituents were on nobody's bingo card, right? Ripple and Stellar and HBAR. So a lot of the names that were where there was excitement in the beginning of the year sort of switched places. So it was a very strong year, and it really provided a launch pad for 2025.
And now we're going to get back to Hedera working with some of these big consulting firms. Last week, we talked about how the Hgraph Association was working with KPMG. And this week, Genfinity did an interview with one of the three largest management consulting firms, Boston Consulting Group, discussing how they're working with THA on Hedera integration. BCG focuses on enterprise management, where KPMG and the Big Four do everything from auditing, taxes, and compliance. The other two big management consulting firms include McKinsey and Bain. Ryan did a fantastic job in that interview, and I talked to him, and he said we could grab a few highlights. So let's take a look.
Going to the very beginning of our conversations briefly, as BCGX, we are asked to help corporates navigate this space, and that requires us to be vendor agnostic. So we are not exclusively in bed with any technology company in the world. Also not in AI. We in the end look for what is the very best technology for corporate in the very specific context where they operate and seek value. So and the same holds, so to say, for blockchain. So we entertain relationship with a few blockchain companies, mostly in the layer one space, where we have over time figured out that they have some intriguing application to the corporate clients that we have, and are well set up to serve them. And that is, so to say, where Hgraph came in. So for the past 3 years, we've been actually partnering, collaborating, and discussing a lot with Hgraph, the Hgraph Association team on, how to unlock this and serve this appetite in the corporate world for blockchain-powered solutions. There needs to be an audit trail on all the behavior and activity of any autonomous agent. Yeah, it's behaving according to what we agreed or not, and because it's happening invisibly to me. So there is a beautiful application where timestamped activity, or immutably stored activity of what this agent has been doing, provides the auditability, and then also actually helps to solve the question of liability. Yeah, has the agent been prompted to do things, or has the agent done things that were not planned to be done? Actually, one thing that we have done a couple of times in various forms, yeah. In the end, it's about tokenizing the product passport of any kind of physical product. Think about steel. Steel by now can be produced entirely green, with electric furnaces and sourcing considerations. You can make steel entirely CO2 free. Now this, if an electric furnace is running on renewables and yeah. And so how do I vouch for that? Because I can in the market, win a green premium for green steel, which I can declare with trustworthiness, yeah. Or look at how airlines are using sustainable fuels, yeah, and they only have, I don't know, let's say 10,000 hectoliters of this available, but they need to vouch for that they're not having people book more of this, than they really have. And these kind of book and claim use cases are also very interesting. We need to vouch for the trustworthiness that the corporate is not giving you false data. Yeah, and evidently, every reasonable corporate wants to be providing trustworthy volumes of this. And so I think ESG tracking, CO2 tracking, product passport is a real thing. If you think of AI and maybe the tech stack, or the journey of data through an AI and an LLM, I think there are different points where there is a reliable thesis that blockchain could add to making these more valuable. Yeah, there's this big unsolved conflict on copyright, and I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an IP lawyer. I don't want to take a stance on is it fair use or a copyright infringement here. But if you think about how to resolve for it, there could be a way to think about the micropayment capability that very scalable blockchains can provide. Yeah. Then there is of course still an attribution challenge, but all the inputs that go into LLMs, for every output, you could actually find some algorithmic logic how each of the contributors, and there will be myriads of contributors to an LLM, has contributed to it and would actually be allocated a very, very, very small fraction of a micropayment. I think the third category of things that are being tokenized, which I find most intriguing, especially in the age of AI, is data. Yeah, and if you think about one very interesting use case we see with a lot of clients is they want to vouch for the integrity of some data, maybe for CO2 accounting, yeah, for accounting for their ESG footprint. And so if you can show an immutable record, all the benefits that blockchain offers, but it needs to go basically back to the IoT device, which in the end creates the data point. So you see actually not only that there's data streaming from an IoT device into an ERP or any other system, and then there's a tokenization layer. You even see efforts to go into actually on-chip, like on-device tokenization, to make the the transition of the data truly immutable. Yeah, and so I think there's something very interesting happening there in the IoT space.
So one of the things that I realized in this interview is that even though the BCG rep was very knowledgeable on what's going on in the crypto space and was, of course, familiar with what they're doing with Hedera, they weren't necessarily aware of everything that's going on in the Hedera space. But every single one of those verticals that he mentioned, Hedera has been doing some really impressive stuff in. So I see even more potential for places where we can collaborate with BCG. So the next thing we're going to touch on is what they're actually doing with Hedera.
Wholesale settlement for roaming. So basically, when two telco companies have one user or customer going to the other's territory and receiving phone calls, he's actually in the end not paying to that network provider, and so there needs to be a settlement of this. Yeah, and so in the end, this is following a quite archaic approach to technology-wise. And here, a single source of truth, yeah, what blockchain can provide, a shared source of truth, we found is a very interesting application. And we worked with two telco providers to, in the end, build a rapid MVP of a platform that would help there. And we could see significant efficiencies coming of it and significant, downstream opportunities if you think about shifting this from basically traditional currency-based settlement to something that is more stablecoin based. We had discussions with treasuries in our ongoing and treasury discussions about how can such a solution be deployed in Europe. Yeah, we're focusing very much in Europe. There are only a couple of countries where there's a lot of cross-border traffic and therefore, roaming activity. And can that be deployed here as an alternative solution to today's legacy approach for faster settlement, almost real-time settlement, instead of doing that actually on an annualized base based on records? Yeah. And so that is a very interesting one where we went very deep into a B2B theme of collaboration with Hedera and the Hgraph Association. And I think that's a very interesting example to illustrate.
So it's great to see Hedera working with these consulting firms. They are working with all kinds of enterprises that are looking for solutions in all different verticals. And we want to make sure that Hedera is in their toolbox. All right, now we're going to move on to some updates on some use cases we have in the Hedera space. So first, I want to throw a huge congratulations to the Neuron team. They put out a post saying, "Congrats to our team who just won Best Startups as voted by the top Web3 investors in the space. This award went to the most investable project out of 20 specially selected projects." And to answer their question, yes, I am feeling bullish about Neuron. Dovu also put out there that 1 million carbon credits were minted at an average speed of 67,950 NFTs per hour over roughly 14.75 hours. They said, interestingly, we could run this tool for each Dovu OS client simultaneously, each on an individual instance of the Hedera Guardian. Next up, we caught up with Brandon D. Of course, he's with Hgraph, and we heard some really good things about what Hgraph is doing from Brady at Bonzo Finance, the last DeFi corner we had, so we wanted to get the full story. Brandon, it's been a little while. Welcome, buddy.
It has been. What a year in Hedera so far. I mean, it's been great watching the show, the Charles clips, Shark Bites. I mean, it's how I stay updated, so I appreciate it.
I'm having fun with it, and that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a one-stop shop so people can check things out. But being able to get people like Eric Balchunas from Bloomberg on, and Charles, and of course, every week I get to talk to Rob, these conversations are a blast.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's great watching the show grow and the community support and everything. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. So the reason why I wanted to get you on is because yesterday I was just talking to Brady from Bonzo, and he was talking about how they're using some of your services and how he's happy with what he's seeing. But before we get into that, can you just explain what Hgraph is?
Absolutely. So Hgraph is a trusted tech partner in the Hedera ecosystem and beyond. We work with a lot of great clients and partners and customers to do exactly what Brady described, but then also all sorts of other things like custom software and applications. But really what I think the Hedera ecosystem is most interested in, and the fact that Hgraph's been here for a long time, and we really have roots in the retail ecosystem, but have expanded to enterprise. And I think that at the center of all that is our focus on mirror nodes, data tooling, and just the connection with the community.
So, I think of it because you guys have kind of grown up with us. You've been in the community, and I think of you, working with these real retail partners. But are you getting traction with those enterprises?
Absolutely. Yeah, we work with really great partners. I mean, we work with Hgraph, we work with the HBAR Foundation, we work with the Hgraph Association on a variety of interesting projects. We have some other stuff in the hoppers we can't talk about yet, but there's always really interesting things happening. And when I say enterprise, there are certain startups or government included in that as well. Enterprise covers a big spectrum. And as we venture more into that, we're going to have a lot more detail, but it's an exciting space.
Good stuff. All right. So now I want to get into what prompted me to invite you guys back on. I had that conversation with Brady. He was saying that they switched over from using the Hedera supplied mirror node, which covers, all of the data that's being captured by Hedera, to your mirror node. And you could tell he was surprised at the improvements that he actually saw. And he was, very complimentary of what you guys are doing. Can you explain why they saw those efficiency gains?
Absolutely. And it's really about understanding the data landscape on Hedera. And when I started at Hgraph, it was back in February last year. So I've been at Hgraph. It's just a couple days into my second year here, and learning about what I call and what I've kind of referred to before is the other half of the Hedera network. And this was such an important thing because as we see on the Hedera network, a lot of problems we've experienced have been around how we can retrieve data in the forms of what insights can we get, what analytics can we do, but also how fast can we get this information. And I mean, this year or last year, Tyler and I at Hgraph, our CEO, I mean, we've been focused on growing the team, doing a bunch of exciting stuff like we're talking about. But now it's very exciting to be expanding this and kind of unleashing this on the Hedera network. And so to your question, like, how does Hgraph bring more speed and stability to the Hedera ecosystem? It's about that other half of the network. And how I look at it is in the space and on your show and in most places, everybody talks about how all the cool stuff we're putting into the network, right? But we don't often talk about like, well, how do we get that stuff out? How do we know what's going on? And that's been a big challenge. And when I started at Hgraph and really diving into this stuff, and Tyler's just doing incredible work in the team there. No one really knew a lot about mirror nodes or why they were important, but yet the community was experiencing a lot of different issues with maybe it's an NFT mint or something like that. And so for us, what it was really about is just illustrating the fact that there's this one side of the network that's the right side putting stuff in. It's like working out an arm. And you got the data side, and we haven't really been working it out. And we really need to build that strength. And it's really that simple. And so over the last year, we've seen that. And now we're starting to see the results of that. And not to say like there are great providers in the data space on Hedera. Hgraph is just, I think, really fortunate to have that close relationship with so many of these community developers. And I think that's something that really excites me about the Hedera 2.0 initiative, is because that's really what it's about. And so what we've experienced and kind of what the situation has been for a long time is the solutions have been difficult or expensive and uncompromising, right? Hedera is a little bit of a unique beast, especially when it comes to data. So Hgraph, our focus is really about being easy, affordable, and flexible. And this is what people are talking about. And so focus on a few things. So in regards to kind of like taking Hedera first and really focusing on the bleeding edge features of the Hedera network, we have customers like Kabila who are developing whole NFT marketplaces, tooling, their wallet, all these things that are like very advanced features that require the latest and greatest from the Hedera network. And we're always focused on being on the bleeding edge of that. There's so many exciting things like block nodes and block streams. On the data scalability side, we host a lot of software and do a lot of work with the Hgraph online group with their hashinals and all sorts of data standards and a lot of exciting stuff that, again, I can't talk about. But that's another thing is about the data scalability, just literally the amount of hard drives and data we're going to have to store on this network. There also is something unique and interesting about Hgraph, which is we provide a GraphQL API. And this is a little technical, but generally people receive data from the Hedera network through what's called a REST API. And a lot of developers will be familiar with that. And then there's the GraphQL API. And really the difference is almost the REST API is like a fixed restaurant menu where you can choose a set amount of meals with no substitutions. And so sometimes that can make it difficult to have an efficient application. You're retrieving too much data or not enough. So you're having to do all sorts of work on your side to make that work. Whereas a GraphQL API to get data is almost like an a la carte menu. It's like, I need this, that, and this, whether it's a ton or a tiny amount, you can get whatever you want. So that's specifically, I think, us offering that unique feature is a huge component of kind of what Bonzo and other customers talk about. And then it just comes down to the speed, right? And that's what Bonzo was touching on. And with that GraphQL API, Hashpack was able to refactor a lot of their wallet to just make the application so much faster using that. And that's kind of what Bonzo is realizing as well, is with these new tools and taking that Hedera first approach, the first class approach, it's like, there's so much more that you can do. And it's going to be really exciting to see all these other projects start to be able to unleash more of these capabilities. But I think what people are most interested in is kind of, well, what's actually the secret sauce for all this stuff? And on one side, it is kind of what I spoke about. It's just that close relationship with builders. You can't build those solutions if you don't understand the problems. But also, a big topic in the data side of stuff is the cloud and how expensive it is, right? And Google Cloud and AWS and all the different considerations you have to make. And one thing that I love about this company, about Hgraph, is we own and operate our own hardware infrastructure. So not only does that give us greater levels of control of how we optimize this data and make it available for people, but it also allows us to easily build our own custom software on top of it, doing things like providing the GraphQL API and all these different types of optimizations. So that's really where the difference lies for us, is from top to bottom, focusing on this infrastructure, making sure it's, affordable, flexible, easy, and focused on the Hedera network. And then just really quickly, it all kind of comes together when we talk about enterprise and some of the more specialized deployments that we're doing, and very complex data pipelines that some of these organizations need. And like I mentioned, we're working with, some of the top in the ecosystem, like the HBAR Foundation, the Hgraph Association, and Hgraph themselves. And we're exploring all sorts of other things like AI and other blockchains and data, other future tech spaces. And it just is this great feedback loop, because a lot of the work that we do to help our customers helps these enterprises. And a lot of the work we do that helps these enterprises, we can bring back and provide these features for our customers. So we're just really excited that this industry, there's movement happening. And yeah, I just can't be more excited. But that's a little bit behind the curtain and about why folks are excited about these new opportunities with data on Hedera.
Absolutely. So, Brandon, one of the things when I think about a distributed ledger, I think about, an Excel spreadsheet, right? A regular ledger, and all of the rows there are the who, right? Those are the account numbers. They could be individuals, they could be businesses. And then the columns are the what. It could be a JPEG, it could be the HBAR, it could be stocks, bonds, whatever it may be. But one of those columns could be just data, right? Information. And that's what we talk about when we talk about the Hedera consensus service or provenance of data, all the different things that you were going over there a minute ago. Why is Hedera well set up to become that trust layer of data, provenance of data? I know that, querying on Hedera is a lot easier, but why is that? Why is Hedera set up well for logging that data?
I think that there's two things. I think that one, it's just technical, right? We all know about how efficient the Hgraph algorithm is. And also, two, the fact that we've had use cases like Atma.io that generate so much data. So it's a technical efficiency thing, but also it's a bit of a battle-tested thing, where if we've got dozens and dozens of terabytes from these Atma.io transactions, that's a difficult thing to pull off, but Hgraph's managed to do that. And this network is going to generate so much more data. And I think that there's that current technical advantage, but I think that most interestingly, and I don't know if you've had Richard Bear on your show talking about block nodes and block streams. It's just, I think you actually have, it's fascinating. And I've had time speaking with him and their team. And it's just those kinds of things when we talk about a data economy and we talk about the intersections of AI and DLT and possible marketplaces, how all these different types of things come together. And it's about, what standards and methodologies are we playing with? Because you can have heaps and heaps of data, but if nobody's on the same page, you can't do anything with it. And so I think the other side to this equation that's often overlooked is the human side of it, right? Are we coming to consensus on standards for these types of things? Sure, we've got enterprises that have preset things or consortiums, but if we look at something like Hgraph Online that is a grassroots Web3 DAO focusing on this tooling, I think that the tight-knit aspect of our community, that's the other side of it, is what do we do with this data? What are the standards? Can we make the rules this time around? So it's on all sorts of different fronts. I'm really excited about it. But I think that's what separates Hedera apart, right? Tight-knit communication and just the technical efficiency of the network.
Sure. All right. So I want to ask about any other products that you have that you want to focus on, or anything that we haven't covered already.
Right. So I'm very excited to talk about this stuff. I know I've been teasing it quite a bit. We have some very exciting stuff coming. We have a new website, hgraph.com. It details a lot of this. And currently we're offering, I think, some of the best plans that you can get and access to data on the Hedera network. That's really affordable. Our plans start at $18 a month. And you can get access to, like I mentioned, the GraphQL API and the REST API with all sorts of other different features. And we've got a variety of different plans. We want to make this easy and affordable for people. And so we're offering those services that we've always provided. We're just making it easier. And some stuff we have coming that's going to do that even further is a new account dashboard that's going to be self-serve, so you can log in very easily through a variety of different methods. And you can just see your usage, sign up for a plan, get accessing the Hedera network data in a way that is easy. We're going to have a developer playground so you can start playing around with GraphQL, a schema explorer. And one of the most requested things that we've got from the ecosystem is the JSON RPC relay. If we look at EVM equivalence, especially with the work we're doing with Wallet Connect and Reown, that is going to be so important because that's how people using MetaMask and outside Hedera are going to be able to communicate and use dApps inside the network. So the JSON RPC relay is so important. And I'm really excited we're going to have that coming very soon. So if there's anybody out there that wants to test that, reach out to us. And we're also going to have free accounts coming. Once the account dashboard is live, you're going to be able to get a free account, 45,000 calls for free. That means you can call our APIs every minute if you want to and just have some kind of app and start exploring. And that's basically, that's what's going on. It's on the website and we're just really excited to get it out there.
All right. Well, I love what you guys have been doing to this point. And once you start to hear other businesses singing your praises, you know you're on the right track. But Brandon, thanks for coming on here today and explaining it to us. And we'll see you at HederaCon.
Right on. Yeah, I'm going to be at HederaCon. I'll see everybody. And if you are building something cool, reach out to Hgraph.
And the last thing that I want to mention before we get to network analysis and the HBAR market is that Dino, our meme coin, has gotten a new yield farm on SaucerSwap. So getting one of these yield farms means more rewards for supplying liquidity on SaucerSwap, and the vote was ridiculously close. SaucerSwap uses their DAO and their native token Sauce to determine which one of these yield farms is going to get it. Now, when they have these yield farms added, that means another yield farm is going to lose some of those incentives. One of the reasons why I'm bringing this up is because I thought it was interesting to watch the dynamics. So first, they had to get over 16 million Sauce in favor of getting this yield farm, and they got just over 16 million to vote in the affirmative. So that in itself was pretty darn close. But the other thing is there has to be more yes votes than no votes. And the no votes were over 15 million. So just letting you know how close this was. I just thought it was interesting to follow and see how all this worked out. And with that, let's jump into some network analysis. When I hopped on Hashpoint Research, we were cruising along at a couple dozen transactions per second. We had 41,000 accounts created this week, an impressive 845,000 NFT transfers, and I also noticed that the Doctor Who Worlds Apart NFTs that we've covered in the past are getting minted fairly regularly, so it's good to see them continuing to make progress. We also saw 1.5 million smart contract calls. Moving over to the crypto and HBAR markets, it's been a rough week for alts, but Bitcoin has held up relatively well, and it's currently sitting at just under $98,000, down just over 4% on the week, but up slightly on the day. HBAR is down 20% on the week, but that's about the norm for alts, and HBAR has stayed in the mid-teens on the CoinMarketCap list, indicating it hasn't underperformed. It has recovered a bit over the past 24 hours, about 5% to just over 24 cents. Our friends over at All In Crypto were pretty bullish on the developments this week. A lot of leverage was flushed out of the crypto space, and HBAR bounced off a key technical level in the upper teens. This was the same level that we saw touched on the Archax Bloomberg spike last April. It was also a key level during the breakout in November. We certainly have some work to do, but I'm having flashbacks to the beginning of the last bull market when we hit 12 cents, which was a very important level, and retraced back to 7 cents. I remember having conversations and seeing posts at the time that it was all over, but then we spiked from there in epic fashion. This time around, the situation is much more bullish in my opinion, and this pullback hasn't fazed me in the least. Right now, I'd like to see us get above and stay above 27 cents. So if you're into NFTs, the Bull Barbarians are coming along really well. I talked to the Galaxy team. They're all about setting up that token-gated world so you can get early access to my content. We're also working with the Twigital team, so my team at Twigital. We have something called Twigital Labs, which allows you to create not just 3D renderings of physical objects, but pretty much anything you can dream of because we're leveraging AI. But you can also use already created art to create these 3D renderings. So we're trying to mess around with that to figure out how we can come up with characters that can be animated, used in games, and so forth. I also had a conversation with Kabila. Even though we're going to have that main mint right before HederaCon, they wanted to feature their platform at the event itself. So we're going to have a mini mint. We're going to hold a few of them off and actually be able to showcase what Kabila is doing, showcase their platform there at the event. Looking forward to next week. I was going to get Greg Bell on, but it looks like he's going to be a little bit too busy. But I do have an interview already set up with Circle of Games. It seems like they have some really exciting stuff going on. Of course, we're going to have Shark Bites next week. So if you have any questions for Rob, go ahead and drop those down in the comments. That's all we have. We'll see you next week.